Well, welcome to the 700 Club. The future of Israel is hanging in the balance. Well, what's going on? Well, it's a critical move in the coming days that not only risks stability in the Middle East, it also threatens the Israeli government. Well, what's going on? And why has it put Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz at odds? Our Chris Mitchell explains from Jerusalem.
From the Middle East to Europe and across the Atlantic, world leaders are debating whether Israel can annex nearly one-third of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. But David Parsons sees the term annexation as misleading, since Israel is not seizing land.
Because they are essentially just asserting their title to something that they already have a right and claim to. The international community recognized it 100 years ago at the San Remo Conference, the League of Nations mandate in 1922, that the Jewish people have a claim to this entire land.
President Trump's so-called deal of the century triggered the possible claim to the land.
What's interesting is that President Trump has said if the Palestinians won't come to the table right away, Israel can start the process of incorporating this 30%, up to 30%, into the modern sovereign state of Israel.
After meeting with advisors to both Netanyahu and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz, Joel Rosenberg says they don't see eye to eye on the timing.
When I sit with close advisors to Prime Minister Netanyahu, they make a very interesting case. They say, okay, Joel, why is this summer different from all other summers? We didn't pick this summer. The President of the United States is the first president in history to lay out a peace plan that allows us to have more territory in biblical lands than we ever have been offered by, nobody has ever offered us that. When you talk to the close advisors to Defense Minister, alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz, they say, well, we support the idea, and we support the President's peace plan. However, is this the right moment?
The division between Benny Gantz and Netanyahu has led some Israeli political pundits to speculate whether annexation will collapse the government and lead to new elections. But for now, the focus is on the White House and whether Israeli sovereignty will be declared over at least part of Israel's biblical heartland. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, in other news, a political firestorm is blazing in Washington. And it's not just about John Bolton's book, Fanning the Flames. Attorney General William Barr is under fire. And Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, House Democrats are calling for an investigation into Attorney General Barr's role in the removal of a U.S. district attorney, with one saying he should be impeached. And Bolton's book is out this week, even though a judge says it risks national security. All this as the president returns to the campaign trail over this past weekend. Gary Lane has the story.
Campaign 2020 is now in full swing, with the president holding his first rally since March, and as pre-4th of July political fireworks erupt in Washington. In Tulsa, the president blamed the media for spreading fear and negativity about the rally. He also said protesters outside the arena blocked access, leading to a smaller than expected crowd and empty seats.
You are warriors. Thank you. We had some very bad people outside. They were doing bad things. I stand before you today to declare the silent majority is stronger than ever before.
The silent majority is the least of the president's concerns this week. A federal judge has ruled that this book, The Room Where It Happened, written by former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton, can be released. In an exclusive interview with ABC News' Martha Raddatz, Bolton accuses Trump of putting his own interests ahead of the country's.
He was so focused on the re-election that longer-term considerations fell by the wayside.
Slamming Trump on his negotiations with North Korea and Russia's President Putin.
I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle.
In his ruling, the judge said Bolton gambled with national security and opened himself to civil and potential criminal liability. But drafts of the book are already in the hands of the media, and there's no calling them back. The president says Bolton's book is full of lies, and he may be prosecuted for revealing classified information. Bolton says he's confident there's no classified information in the book. Senator Tim Scott says Bolton should have appeared when given a chance to testify before the House last year.
So for $29.95, he could monetize his national security clearance, but under oath, he would have had an opportunity to answer questions and not just make assertions.
Meanwhile, at the Department of Justice, political fallout for the president and the attorney general over the firing of the federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. Jeffrey Berman sent the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, to prison and was looking into current Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani for his work investigating Hunter Biden and Ukraine. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler says Attorney General Barr deserves to be impeached for doing the president's bidding. President Trump denies involvement in the firing.
That's all up to the Attorney General. Attorney General Barr is working on that, so that's really up to him. I'm not involved.
The president's critics say he's been pushing for Berman's firing for months. Nadler's committee will investigate. Gary Lane, CBN News.
A lot happening there, Pat.
Well, that Southern District of New York is a real hotbed, isn't it? But the truth is that these attorneys serve at the pleasure of the president, and Pete Bharara was the one who was so adamant about leaving when they dismissed him. But also the current U.S. attorney had to resign. I mean, he served at the pleasure. He said he was appointed by judges, and therefore judges had to take him out. But that he's resigned, and there's no way you could impeach the attorney general on firing some district attorney. I mean, but this guy was sure going after the Trump people. And the other thing, the rally that the president had, I'm under the impression there were some organizations that handed in requests for invitation. They had to sign some waivers about liability, and a lot of them did that. It inflated the crowds, and then they didn't show up. And so it wasn't just fake media. There was people playing games, and those games can hurt if you plan an event based on that kind of a crowd, and the crowd is diminished. But so it's hardball they're playing, and there's no holds barred. Ephraim?
President Trump may be considering a change of direction in his Venezuela policy. Axios reports in an Oval Office interview with the president, he said he's open to meeting with dictator Nicolas Maduro. The administration has pursued a maximum pressure campaign to force Maduro out, publicly backing Venezuelan National Assembly leader Juan Guaido as the legitimate leader. But the president reportedly is not impressed with Guaido's failure to take control from Maduro. And while he's still firmly opposed to Maduro's socialist policies, he said he's never opposed to meetings. Pat?
I think a meeting with Maduro would elevate Maduro in the eyes of the people and make him look like he's a legitimate leader. He is a thug. He has destroyed Venezuela. We should have sent, I asked for the OAS. They should have moved against Maduro. He is supported by Cuban troops, and he has troops that apparently are loyal to him, and it's those armed forces that are keeping him in power. And for the President of the United States to sit in and parlay with a guy like that is wrong. He is just a thug. And we should, if there was ever a time that the United States, but I ask not just the U.S., but the OAS, the Organization of American States, they should a long time ago have come against Venezuela. That country has been absolutely destroyed. It has been made a basket case. People are in desperate condition. They are starving. There isn't enough money. The inflation is running out of sight. And I understand that there was some surreptitious gold shipments where he sent the gold in planes out of the country to Iran or some place like that, because he's out of, not only out of gold, but the oil is just about run out too. So he has no source of income. And for the President of the United States to meet with him, it would be a tragic, tragic mistake. Ephraim?
Pat, here in the United States, there have been 2 shootings in Seattle's occupied protest zone in less than 48 hours. That's the 6-block area in downtown Seattle where protesters have taken control after police deserted their precinct. The latest shooting happened Sunday night. The victim is in the hospital and is in serious condition. That shooting comes after another before dawn Saturday in the zone. It killed a 19-year-old boy and left a 33-year-old man critically injured. Body cam video shows police moving in, then protesters forcing officers away.
Please move out of the way. We can get to the victim. All we're trying to do is get to the victim.
Volunteer medics took the victim to the hospital. No arrests have been made. Police have only been going into that zone if there's an active shooter or a mass casualty situation. President Trump has criticized the city's Democratic mayor and the state's Democratic governor for allowing this zone to continue. Pat?
The right of the people to peaceably address their government for redress of grievances shall not be abridged. Fine. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives people the right to take over blocks of a city and set up a separate government in it. And I tell you, the fact that we should go in there with full force and tear gas and let those people have it. We cannot allow this kind of thing to go on in the United States. If it happens in Seattle, the next thing you know, it's going to happen in San Francisco, and then it's going to happen in Cleveland, it's going to happen all across the country. We cannot be allowed. And the governor and the mayor should know that they've done something wrong. And I heard suggested, and it was a very good one, cut off their power, cut off their utilities, cut off their cell phone, block the cell phone so they can't talk to anybody. And then if you have to, starve them out. But if not, go in with maximum force. You know, peaceable protests should be allowed to continue. But this isn't a peaceful protest. It is a revolution. We cannot allow our country to be taken over by these people. And it's time for the governor and the mayor out there in Seattle to stand up. And if that city, it's going to be torn apart. And Seattle is a very lovely city, but it's now going to become known as the place where the war zone was. And if it spreads, it'll be like a contagion. When you talk about the coronavirus, there's nothing that can match the severity of a revolution if it's allowed to continue. And I've been reading books about all the way back to George Washington, and there was a whiskey rebellion in the western part of our country, and they tried to revolt against the country, and George Washington sent troops in and said, no way. Well, that's the model we should follow. You send in the troops, but this is state sovereignty. And the governor, I mean, why would we want people like that running these cities and running these states? It is an abomination. Ephraim?
Pat, the White House is preparing for a second wave of the coronavirus, restocking the national supply of medical equipment in the case of a surge in the fall. At least 11 states set record highs in cases this weekend, and hospitalizations are up in 17 states. One former FDA official warns Arizona, Texas, and Florida could see exponential growth this week. In Florida, more than half of the reported cases Saturday were patients younger than age 35. The coronavirus has redefined the way we do church. Sunday in Virginia Beach, they came by boat and beach for what's being called Boat Church. Wendy Griffith was there.
It was a picture-perfect morning. For those torn between being outside on a beautiful summer day and going to church, Boat Church here at the Narrows at First Landing State Park in Virginia Beach offers the perfect solution.
We have just really missed being in church, as I'm sure so many families have, and we have 4 kids, so for them to be able to be out here on a beautiful day and worship and hear the word and play on the beach, it's just been a really special morning on Father's Day for sure.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son.
Several local churches are taking part in Boat Church. Sunday, Adam Cates, the preacher at Big House Church, gave a message on God's love.
In the Gospels, Jesus preached some of his best messages from a boat. There's a reason people come to the shore, come to the beach, or love to get out on their boat. There's something that connects us in the spirit through water.
Organizer and former Governor Bob McDonnell says the inspiration for Boat Church came from a similar experience he had at Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia.
We kind of copied the Smith Mountain Lake Boat Church idea and started the planning about a year ago. We think this is just providential that the planning ended up with this concept to start in the middle of a pandemic when people were looking for a way to be together to worship.
Co-organizer Cheryl McCluskey says the hope of Boat Church is also to inspire those who don't know the Lord.
I've always wanted to bring in people that don't believe in the Lord and people that don't go to church on Sundays. And if we're touching one person, then this is worth it, and we're just so pleased.
Boat Church plans to meet every Sunday at 10 a.m. at First Landing State Park until September 6th. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Virginia Beach.
Boat Church, nice concept, Pat.
It's really nice if you're living on the water as we are at Virginia Beach. I mean, that is really beautiful.